Hey, it's Mark Lanier with your video thought for the day. So, question. Have you ever read the Bible and come across a passage that just really doesn't make sense? I mean, it's not that it's hard to understand. It's like it doesn't seem logical. One of those is your video thought for the day. And I got to warn you, those are some of my favorite passages because those are the kinds of passages that if someone was just making this stuff up, they wouldn't really have a reason to put them in there. These are passages that derive some of their meaning from how true the events were, that make you sit there and dig for deeper meaning. And I've found when you dig for deeper meaning, you not only find some really neat stuff, but you also find something that's personally enriching. So with that, the passage is a little bit long, but I'll need to read some of it to you. It's not one I've committed to memory, but the story I have. The story is found in Mark chapter 8. And in the story, they're coming to a town called Bethsaida. Now, this is a town where Jesus did a lot of his ministry. And so it was a common place for him to come. And some people bring to Jesus a blind man. Now, they brought him and they begged Jesus to touch him. I think they were probably expecting something would happen if Jesus touched him. Now, Jesus takes the blind man and he leads him by the hand outside this village. And that is when Jesus spit on the man's eyes, okay? Spit on the blind man's eyes and then laid his hands on him and said, "Do you see anything?" Now, the blind man looks up after Jesus has spit on his eyes and laid hands on him. And he says, "I see people, but they look like trees walking." Then Jesus laid his hands on him a second time. And at that point, the man's eyes opened and he sees clearly. His sight was fully restored. Jesus said to him, "Go to your house, but don't even enter that village." And that's the story. It's found in Mark chapter 8, verses 22 through 26. Now, this should cause you to ask a lot of questions. You should say, okay, why did Jesus have to do it twice? Was it, Jesus having a bad day? First touch didn't heal the man, had to do two. Why does Jesus lead him by the hand outside the village to do this? Did Jesus not want a lot of people to see because he was thinking, I may not be up to this? And then at the end, why did Jesus say, don't go back in the village, go home? This is loaded with a bunch of things that make a lot of people today say, I'm not sure I really get all of this story. And that's the reason that it's so much fun to dig. Because you and I are reading this 2,000 years almost after the events happened. And we're not steeped in the Greek version of the Old Testament. The Greek translation that was used so much in the time of Jesus and at the time Mark wrote this gospel. If we had been steeped in that, we would have seen what was going on here and what Mark and Jesus were trying to communicate. See, there was an Old Testament prophet named Jeremiah. And this passage is very, very close to the Greek here is almost identical to the Greek used to translate that Jeremiah book, where Jeremiah, the Old Testament prophet, talked about how God had made a covenant with the Israelites when he brought them out of Egypt. but he says, I took them by the hand to bring them out of Egypt. And he made that covenant. And then Jeremiah talks about how God's going to make a second covenant with them. That'll be a covenant that's written on their heart. That'll be such a bigger, fuller covenant. That language that God says, I took them by the hand out of Egypt, is basically identical to the language that Jesus did, except he took him by the hand out of Bethsaida. And Jesus, the first time God brought Israel out, God gave them a revelation. And the revelation, the law on Sinai, was even one that contained a prophetic promise of that final second revelation, that second covenant, that second manifestation of God's fullest glory in Jesus. And so Jesus is reenacting what God did. And he brings him out, and he spits on him and touches him and says, what do you see? And the man could see, but not real clearly. It was kind of fuzzy. And that's the vision that Israel had until the Messiah came and gave himself fully. Now, I've gone too long for this thought for the day, but it's just too good of a passage for us not to see that Jesus heals his people with a new covenant. In a master stroke, Jesus shows that he is the life and that he can change your life and mine in fullness. More tomorrow, but that's your video thought for the day.